By the way, when I was in Vancouver, I spoke to a pro-life group on the Saturday night. Wonderful people, a couple of hundred people, vibrant, enthusiastic, and this is what people experience. Whatever their view on the abortion issue, they come across all these young people, huge numbers of young, well-adjusted, normal young people who just think we need to discuss one of the major issues of contemporary politics, which is abortion. But they're told by these older people, no, we don't want to talk about that anymore. Have you noticed that? It tends to be the older generation, both male and female, who say, don't talk about the issue. Younger people are saying, well, even if they're not pro-life, why not? Surely discuss the issue. Alyssa Globe from Campaign Life is a younger person. She's terribly young. Always a pleasure to have you here. Moral Maze. I've said this before. I wish we didn't have to talk about this, because, just move on to other things. But it goes on and on. There are so many aspects now to the culture of death. Couple sues over adopted son's early sex assignment surgery. Oh, I'm terrified to ask, but what was this about?
Well, this one's kind of confusing to me. I'm actually more interested to see what you have to say, Michael. But there was a child born with both the male and female reproductive organs. Mm-hmm. And after 16 months, the doctors and nurses decided that this child would be female. And it was an adopted child, so he didn't have any parents, or she didn't have any parents at this time. And then 20 months later, she was adopted. And now the child's 8 years old. They call the child MC, and he is, I don't know what to say, but he's more of a man, like more of a boy. He's playing with boy toys, likes to dress in boys' clothing. So the parents are now suing the doctors and the social workers for making this decision too early on, before the child had a chance to adjust.
This is not typical, actually. This is extremely complex, because when it's physiological, when there are, and it's very rare, but when there are both sets of genitalia, then it's entirely valid that someone has to make a decision. And I can see how doctors would argue, well, the sooner the better in terms of adjustment.
Yeah.
But how can they prove that it is a little girl is acting in a masculine way? I mean, playing with boys' toys is pretty cosmetic.
I think just the way that the child behaves, and just
like smoking a pipe and what?
Yeah, I don't know. And dressing in boys' clothing and wanting shorter hair, those kinds of things. I found it a bit strange when they said that the child's friends were adapting well to the transformation, because the child was a girl and now. The child's a boy, which I think, 8-year-olds will not understand that.
No.
I don't know how they can adapt to that. But I do think, in a sense, that the parents do have a point, because you can't make that decision that early on. And I would say let nature take its course. And although those answers are going to be like, what colors do we dress the child in, or what do we call the child? There are unisex names that you can call. And then just wait until nature takes its course. Wait until the child, where the child is developing, and then do it in terms of that.
You do worry that is it about money? I mean, at 8 years old, it's so young. I mean, children, it's very difficult to know exactly what's going on in all sorts of ways at that age. And they were told, surely, when they adopted the child, what the background was.
I'm sure they were. There's a lot of information missing. Like, I didn't read anything about why the doctors chose to make that decision. I feel like there must have been a reason biologically why they leaned more towards the female than the male, but it doesn't say necessarily.
No, not going into details. But I think from my reading of it, very early on, they may be both genitalia, but it doesn't mean they're both developed.
Exactly.
And particularly the male genitalia could be in its sort of inchoate form, so they just say, well, but I mean, it's always very difficult. I mean, the ones we deal with often are these lunatic parents who decide, even though this is a little boy, we're going to pretend it's a little girl, and almost force homosexuality or confusion onto the child, and that's when I would actually take the child away, because I think it's child abuse. New York City secret photo exhibition. When I think of what could have been taken of me, oh my golly, because my wonderful form. They didn't know they were being photographed?
Well, I mean, in all fairness, there's a building in New York City that people live in. It's a residential building, but it's known for just being all glass windows.
Yeah.
And so there's a photographer who rented a place across the street and is taking pictures of his neighbors. And he did a gallery, and then there's a public outcry because, the neighbors didn't know they were being photographed, but the photographs were blurred. But I'm thinking, if you're living in a residential building, all of glass windows, like, buy some curtains. I mean, that's step number one.
Surely they have curtains.
Well, I mean, he's getting them when they're napping or when they're, doing all sorts of things. Nothing,
They're not really
sexual.
pornographic. They're just embarrassing,
Yeah,
aren't
it's just
they?
embarrassing.
Yeah, which is, I suppose, that's when they do have a case, because if they were performing a sex act or they were naked, then, well, the curtains should, but they're just, I'm falling asleep and my bum's showing, you know, so that I suppose they did, but hey, it's more responsible than much of the art that we have to pay.
Yeah, for sure. It's not desecrating any holy objects, so.
Now, speaking of desecration, is this heresy? A Pope impersonator. I love this story. I mean, it's a holiday Monday. Impersonator in Rome busted for busking as the late Pope John, or it must be Pope John Paul II. I mean, we know he's dead. I mean, so it's not like pretending to be.
Most people, I don't know. Maybe you've had some people fooled.
So we got to, I mean, the photo's not even that convincing. So, I mean, when you go to Rome, there's always someone dressed up as a gladiator or something, and you pose next to them for a couple of times,
Exactly.
and so it's.
Yeah, he's charged with usurpation of title. Like, they just got to get him on anything. He said in the media that, Pope John Paul II was a great man, and people want to get their picture taken with him, and I see no problem in that, honestly.
I think it's a bit harsh, isn't it? This is a slightly different story. Florida man tricked pregnant girlfriend into taking abortion pill. This sort of thing was inevitable.
Mm-hmm. So there was a 28-year-old Florida man, and he was dating a 26-year-old female who became pregnant, and his father was an OBGYN. So the girl went to see the father and came back, and her boyfriend said that she had an infection and gave her the wrong medication. They gave her a chemical abortion called misoprostol.
On purpose?
On purpose. He changed the label. It was supposed to be amoxicillin.
Right.
He changed it.
So not the father, but the son did?
The son.
Right.
He forged his father's signature, changed the label. She took the pill 3 times a day, started bleeding profusely, went to the hospital, passed out, and lost the baby. So now this man is charged for first-degree murder, could face life sentence.
This is fascinating. So that the father, as a doctor, he did nothing wrong?
No.
And he knew she was pregnant?
Yes.
But did he tell his son? Or the son knew?
The son knew. The son was encouraging her not to keep the baby. She really wanted to keep the baby. She was going to keep the baby. Even though she was being coerced and pressured, she had no intention of having an abortion. And because of that, the son then gave her this tricked her into taking this chemical abortion pill.
No, there's the self-evident truths here that he lied, he broke the law, he harmed her physically.
Yes.
But what is so significant is that this is the death of an unborn child. She suffered, but she'll be okay. But the child was killed, and they're charging him with first-degree murder, not with assault, but with that. What do we construe from that?
I know. I mean, if what we construe is the law is completely contradictory.
Yeah.
If the baby is unwanted, then it's not a human, and to kill that baby is not murder. But if the baby's wanted and it gets murdered anyway, then it's first-degree murder. Like, it makes no sense. The humanity of the fetus doesn't change whether or not it's wanted or not, or who does the abortion.
This could be precedent setting. I mean, a lot of people in the pro-abortion community will be working very hard to make sure this doesn't go through.
I'm sure they will, but it's very hard to argue against because you obviously feel sympathy for the girl, and she comes out saying, that was my baby, I wanted my baby, clearly calling the fetus the baby, humanizing it the way the baby should be humanized, and I think it definitely could set a good precedent, and if it doesn't, then just talking about it, it does wonders because it really shows the contradictory.
Must keep our eyes on this case, but it'll take a while. It's the States, but I think it will. It could change much. And of course, it's his son, or his child. I'm not sure the gender. Sounds like a lovely man, doesn't he? Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.